It's the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Happy Friday. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're both coming to you from our homes on this Friday afternoon. We'll be here for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports topics, and fired up to do so. Wade, welcome back.
What's happening, Mo? Good to be back with you. Good to be back with everybody after a couple days away. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So I'm thrilled to be back and ready to rock on a feel-good little Friday here.
It is a feel-good Friday, man. It's going to be a good show. We're looking forward to it. In the second hour, we will begin our Southeastern Conference football previews. We're going to start in Starkville, Mississippi, as we catch up with the voice of the Bulldogs, Hail State's Neil Price, joining us in the second hour, talking little year two of the Jeff Levy era down there and how things are going. In the next segment, we'll be joined by David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner as the Titans get ready to start preseason competition. They are at Tampa Bay. They've been down there for a couple of days with some joint practices with the Buccaneers, but they will kick it off tomorrow night. So we're going to check in with DB and get some thoughts from him as they get ready to get started. We'll also be talking a little NBA, little baseball. We're also going to check in or continue to check in on the Blue Raiders. We'll let you know more about that here later in the show. We will talk a little boys in gold as they've got another road trip this weekend, checking in on them, some golf, and some WNBA talk as well. So, again, we got plenty to get to between now and 4 o'clock, and looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. Wade's looking forward to 4 o'clock so he can get back out and finish his yard.
Back half's got to be done. Man, got to be done. And was planning to do it yesterday, but we had one of these stupid pop-up showers. It started raining, then it stopped. Then it started raining again, then it stopped, and it never materialized for us yesterday. So, we get a handle on that tomorrow, we're good. Or this afternoon, rather.
I heard about that. Was it yesterday or the day before that I was talking to Doug Scopel over at the Sounds, and they got a pop-up right before game time. So, yeah, it's I guess it's kind of that time of year where it kind of comes out of nowhere and fades back out. So, yeah. But at the same time, any excuse to not mow the yard is probably a pretty good one too.
So. Makes me feel that's where I get my sweat in, though. If it's a rest day from the gym, it makes you feel like I've did a little extra something, even though you didn't really burn that many calories, but it makes you feel good when you do it. Is the way I look at it.
I tell you what, the anticipation of doing it is way worse than actually doing it, and once you get it done, there's kind of a feeling of accomplishment there.
You feel good. The neighbors are like, ooh, I better step my game up. They'll be out in the morning thinking, man, I got Neely's on his A game here. So then you throw the headphones on, spin some tunes or listen to a pod and kind of zone out for a little bit. But as producer Mark said, you got to be careful with these batteries. They die a little quicker than you might like. So you might get hamstrung here and there.
The key is headphones, not AirPods, because you might hit something and all of a sudden you jar one loose and you've lost an AirPod out there in the yard, and yeah, that's not good. Headphones, way harder to lose, so thank me later. But yeah, that's what we've got coming here over the next couple of hours. Let's go ahead and jump into it, Wade, with yesterday's results and this weekend schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Here we go, boys and girls. Your Friday rundown means we start with Thursday results, and we got a couple of baseball scores to tap into to kick things off. In Major League Baseball yesterday, it was the Braves defeating the Marlins. 8-6 was your final score there. In minor league baseball, not so kind to one of our favorites as Jacksonville defeats Nashville. The Jumbo Shrimp over the Sound. 7-2 was that final last night. Trio of WNBA scores on the docket. On that Thursday, it was Atlanta defeating Chicago 86-65. The Sparks topping the Sun 102-91. And the Phoenix Mercury with a beatdown of the Indiana Fever. Your final was 95-60.
Today's action at the Major League level. Houston opens a series at Yankee Stadium, taking on the host Bronx Bombers. That's a 6:05 start, excuse me. You can see it on Apple TV. 10 minutes later, Miami continues its series at Truist Park against the Atlanta Braves. Again, that's a 6:15 first pitch. You can see that one on FanDuel Sports. At 6:35 over at First Horizon Park, the Nashville Sounds look for their first win in this series against the visiting Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. It is stand up to cancer night, and there will be postseason fireworks, post-game fireworks, excuse me. So get on out to First Horizon for that one. Trio of WNBA games tonight, all on Ion. Check your local listings. The Liberty goes to the Lone Star State, taking on Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings. That is a 6:30 start on Ion. Also at 6:30, also on Ion, the Washington Mystics are at the Minnesota Lynx, the Nafisa Collierless Minnesota Lynx. And the nightcap at 9 o'clock out in Vegas, it will be the Aces taking on the visiting Seattle Storm. Again, that's a 9 o'clock tip. All three of those are shown on Ion. So I'm not sure which one we will get here locally, but check that out. Good stuff.
So let's take it into Saturday now for your schedule. Got three, not one, not two, but three MLB baseball games. The Braves featured in two of those. They open things up at 12:15, and the game will be shown on MLB Network as well as FanDuel Sports South. Not long after that, at 1:05, the Astros and Yankees will get it on. That game is also scheduled to be on MLB Network. Good luck with both of those, I suppose. At 1:05 and 12:15. At 6:15, though, the Braves and Yankees going to the Braves and Marlins going to finish a doubleheader there. 6:15 again, your start time. Game will be shown on FanDuel Sports South. Going to minor league baseball action at 6:35 tomorrow. Jumbo Shrimp and the Sounds will get it on at First Horizon Park. They will celebrate Star Wars night. They will also have Hit City Saturday, and it'll be the Guitar Bank giveaway. So a trio of options in terms of entertainment and goodies to get you out to the ballpark again tomorrow night at 6:35. WNBA schedule for tomorrow. It'll be the Sky at the Fever. Buckle up, another chapter in the rivalry. We'll see what happens. 7 p.m., that game will be shown on CBS, folks. 7 p.m. Start time again on CBS. It'll be the Sparks at the Valkyries, beginning 30 minutes later at 7:30. Game can be seen on WNBA League Pass. We mentioned it a moment ago. We'll talk more later, but the Titans are at the Bucks. It'll be a 6:30 p.m. Kickoff in NFL preseason action. 1 hour after that, double dose of football, if you will, as MLS resumes for Nashville Soccer Club. They're at St. Louis. That game again kicks off at 7:30. You can see that one on Apple TV.
Sunday, wrapping up the weekend, Major League Baseball action. The Astros and the Yankees will meet at 12:35. You can see that one on the MLB Network. Also at 12:35, the Marlins and Braves finish up their lengthy series at Truist Park. Again, 12:35, you can see it on FanDuel Sports. The Sounds and Jacksonville will conclude their series at First Horizon Park as well on Sunday. That will be a 6:05 start, and it's Sunday Family Fun Day out at First Horizon. WNBA play on Sunday, nationally televised on ABC at 11:30. It's the Minnesota Lynx at the New York Liberty. 3 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, it's the Mystics at Dallas. At 5 on NBA TV, you can see the Atlanta Dream at Phoenix against the Mercury. At 7 o'clock, Seattle is at the LA Sparks. And at 8 on NBA TV, the Connecticut Sun travels to Vegas, taking on the Aces. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your rundown. Your top story brought to you as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. We talked a little bit about this last week. Marcus Morris, NBA veteran, took out a couple of markers at a couple of Vegas casinos. Must be nice, Wade. I've never been tempted to get laughed out of a casino by asking for a marker, but apparently he went a little longer paying those folks back than they would have liked. In fact, he was facing fraud charges for writing a check with insufficient funds to 2 casinos in Vegas. He has since paid it off. Stroked a check for $265,000 to take care of those two debts to Vegas, and I guess his kneecaps are still intact as a result. Owed the Wynn Las Vegas Hotel and Casino and the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino, again, a total of more than $250,000. The charges have been dropped after he was arrested and held for 51 hours, as he detailed in a since deleted social media post. What hurt the most is I really was chained up and sitting in jail, 24-hour lockdown. Lesson learned. I'm not ducking or hiding from stuff, and most of you know that about me. Check the stats, never owed or needed money for anything. So did I go past the time I needed to repay? Yeah, I probably did. Did I know they would lock me up? Hell no. Dude, you owed somebody $250,000. You're lucky all they did was lock you up.
Yeah, that was my thought is, that's maybe the best case scenario in the grand scheme of things.
Did I take out a marker to gamble? Yes. Was this my first time? No. I've been enjoying my off time and doing what I like every year at some point in Vegas at a high level for years. And that's not just gambling, Marcus. We didn't need to know all that. I really thought the amount of money and time I spent there would really have value. It did. $265,000, and they wanted it back.
Wanted it back, man. Yeah, a lot to unpack there. And, I see what you're doing, Marcus. A couple different flexes there. A little subtle flex. Was it my first time calling it a marker? No. Like you said, must be nice. Just letting everybody know he's done this a time or two. Yeah, I was doing stuff in Vegas just like I've been doing, I don't only go to gamble. I may go to the Spearmint Rhino. You never know. I mean, hard to say what I've been doing out there. But, I love that too. They called it in. Did I think that – it was almost like, did I think – that I would, it's almost like he's saying, I didn't know I would have to pay it back. And it's like, well, that's kind of the point here.
That's what a marker is. Yeah. It's like an IOU, bro. I guess this was a case, Wade, of what happens in Vegas, not staying in Vegas.
Yeah. And, there was a couple stories that have gone public this week about, Vegas is worried, Vegas, the town that is, and the entity, that they're, kind of on the downswing a little bit. I don't know how you can be on the downswing when you got guys, rolling into town and dropping 265 at a time. He needs to get paired up. This maybe will hopefully be a learning lesson. Pair him up with Charles Barkley, and Chuck will put him straight and say, hey, you got to pay those markers back, big fella. Trust me, I know a little bit about that. But more importantly, we did get him out of jail. We got him sprung. And most impressively, perhaps, seems like he had no real problems coming up with the money, which makes you wonder how we got to this spot in the first place.
That's the question. I mean, was it a deal where he just wasn't going to pay it back before he had to, and then he finally got to the point where he had to, or what? I wonder, and we'll never know, obviously, but I just wonder what his thought process was about this whole thing. Yeah, I owe him $250,000, but I'll get to it when I get to it. Well, you got to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, right? I mean, do you got to settle some things, make a few moves, sell some crypto, do whatever you got to do to get your funds, right? But yeah, it seemed like he came up with it pretty quick for a guy that wasn't real eager to pay it back, it seems like.
Well, I guess 51 hours in the clink will kind of clear your thinking a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine that probably puts it in a different perspective. And, obviously, there's probably some not that this matters, but some shame that comes out. I mean, imagine you get out of jail and everybody on the planet kind of knows why you're in there. You fire up your phone for the first time and you got 2,000 text messages to go through. Bro, I'll give you some money. Like, what's the deal here? But good to know we kind of have a somewhat happy ending amidst all this. Like you said, luckily it was only jail time. And I'm thinking also, luckily there wasn't seemingly much interest in charged on this thing. That could have been the real killer for you. That's how they get you.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he wrote a marker for this amount. He paid this amount. Go forth and sin no more, and don't take out any more markers. But again, that is literally credit that the average Joe or the average Mo don't get extended. So
yeah, if they give me a marker, it ain't gonna be. You're gonna have to shave off quite a few numbers from that total there, to say the least.
It might just be the first 3 digits.
Yep.
The 265. That might be as far as I'm going.
Yeah, and I used to go to, what was it, O'Shea's back in the day. I don't know that O'Shea's is in a place to hand out markers. That would have been the only spot I would have felt comfortable even asking. But good to know that he got it squared away. And, yet again, an example of the house always kind of wins in that sense.
The house does win without question. And I mean, you can look at those buildings out there. They're awfully big, and they've not built them off markers. It's straight cash, homie, as Randy would say. So, glad this came, like you said, to a amicable ending. And the only thing hurting at this point is maybe Marcus's pockets, but could be worse. All of his digits are intact, so that's a good thing. Let's take a break here on the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll talk a little Tennessee Titans with David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner. Stick around.
All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mick Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs. Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
833.
Busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh, busy
Ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Hey, welcome back into the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, anxiously awaiting the return of Wade Neely. Wade, are you there? There he is. Well, close. Almost. While we get Wade situated, let's welcome in from the Nashville Banner, David BOCLAIR, to talk a little Tennessee Titans. The Titans been in Tampa for a couple of days with some joint practices ahead of tomorrow night's matchup with the Buccaneers. David, are you there?
I'm here.
You are here. Okay.
I saw Wade for a second there.
I thought I saw him as well. He ghosted us. I don't know what's going on. But hey, thanks for taking some time with us this afternoon, DB. I appreciate it.
Oh, always a pleasure.
Yeah, the Titans, again, been south for a couple of days, getting some work in. From what you understand, how have things gone, and how are they looking as they head into this first preseason matchup?
I think there's sort of a different feel around the Titans right now as opposed to a year ago for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Cam Ward is the big one. There, nobody wants to have the number one overall pick in the draft until you actually make the number one overall pick in the draft, and then you're like, obviously it remains to be seen what he can do, but that creates a lot of excitement, and I think too, Brian Callahan needs to be given some credit for taking sort of a step back. I always said Mike Vrabel was sort of the best of the Titans coaches I worked with at self-analysis and being honest with what's going on. And I think there's been a lot of that from Brian Callahan in terms of he took a step back from his first year and said, okay, we need to do some things differently. Again, it remains to be seen whether they worked, but he created, he broke the roster up into 4 teams during the off-season training part of things and created a sort of a daily competition where score was kept throughout the end of the mini camp there. Trying to create more accountability from day to day than what existed. I think he felt like maybe he was not hard enough on players at times. We saw at the start of this week on Sunday, he absolutely ripped into the offense after a bad practice. And it's interesting because I always tell people you have to be careful when you watch training camp practices because, sometimes they're set up for one side or the other to win. So, people will come away saying, wow, the offense looked terrible today. Well, maybe that's because it was scripted so that the defense was throwing all sorts of stuff at the offense that they hadn't seen because coaches wanted to see the offensive players react to stuff they haven't seen. And it's not always going to look good. But for Callahan to just openly tear into players in a way that felt like it was out of character for him because he is really sort of a relaxed, easygoing guy most of the time. I thought was pretty telling in that it's him saying, I have to do this sometimes that maybe I didn't do it enough or at all last year. So there's things like that I think are creating a sort of a different feel. I do think there's, this is not a team that's ready to take the NFL by storm right now, but there is a chance, there is a sense that, okay, there's something in place that you can build from here. And we'll see what the preseason games reveal in that regard.
David, you've been around the game. You've been around guys that have played the game. How much of an impact does Callahan ripping into, and not specifically, but generally speaking, when a coach at the NFL level does something like that with guys that have been in the game 8, 10, 12 years, do they see through it, or does it actually have a tangible impact on them?
Yeah, I think I think you can't do it too much. I mean, you have to be authentic. You have to be who you are. But I'm sure the players knew they didn't have, or at least the players on offense knew they didn't have a good day. And if they're sort of used to thinking, okay, this is gonna be terrible going through the film review of this practice, or I'm not looking forward to seeing that, and then all of a sudden this bomb drops on them before they even leave the field. I think it probably would have a good effect in terms of getting their attention. Anything that's out of the norm, particularly a couple weeks into training camp, I think is always effective, and whether it's for good or for bad. And so I would guess guys were probably a little bit in just sort of that wash, rinse, repeat mode of training camp, and to see the coach kind of step out of character a little bit probably did catch their attention, I would think.
You talk about nobody wanting the number one pick overall until you've actually got it and you've executed it. And obviously, when you've got the number one pick, things aren't great. But on the whole, to this point, it sounds like Cam Ward has been everything you could have wanted in that situation. Now, obviously, there's preseason games to be played. There's regular season games to be played. There's a lot, but it just doesn't sound like there's a whole lot more he could have done to this point than he has.
Yeah, I mean, he's done all the right things. He said pretty much all the right things. I think he does sort of have that natural leadership ability and charisma that we've seen from other guys in different ways that I do think Will Levis was sort of lacking. When I compare him to Will Levis, it always struck me as kind of amusing, maybe is the word. Levis had started just a handful of games in the NFL. In that first offseason, he's at the Kentucky Derby and he's doing mayonnaise commercials and he's doing I said at the time, it's sort of like, okay, maybe it's that idea that you dress for the job you want, not the job you have. But this is a guy who was behaving like a five-time Pro Bowler and doing, acting like somebody in the vein of Patrick Mahomes or Peyton Manning before he had accomplished anything in the league. And Ward sort of says and does the right things in that regard. And that, look, all my job right now is to work as hard as I possibly can. My job right now is to gain the trust of my teammates. My job right now is to know this playbook as well as I possibly can. I don't think he's putting the cart in front of the horse the way that maybe Levis did. I have no doubt that Will Levis wanted and still wants to be a starting and a star quarterback in the NFL, and that idea is very exciting to him. But I do think he got ahead of himself a little bit in a way that Cam Ward has not to this point.
And you said it in discussing Callahan, DB. It feels like all of that is authentic with Cam.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's exactly right. It's part of his story too. You think about Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft, as opposed to Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 draft. People were rolling. People, when he was 18 years old, people were talking about Caleb Williams as the next great NFL quarterback, and they get him on the field as fast as possible in Oklahoma, and he can't follow Lincoln Riley to USC fast enough, and people are talking about the Heisman trophies he's going to win and this, that, the other thing. And Cam Ward is the exact opposite of that. And if he, from what we know about him and how he has thought about himself and how he felt disrespected, guys carry that with them a long time. There is the trap to say, okay, I was the number 1 overall pick. I've made it. I've answered all the questions, but I don't think Cam Ward is that way. I think he is still very much motivated by the fact that he had to start his college career at Incarnate Word University and then went to Washington State and then finally really got people to know him when he played at Miami. And we'll see what he can prove now as an NFL quarterback, because it's been interesting sort of as camps got started, the national narrative sort of went away from Cam Ward a little bit, and the excitement that people were and the things people were talking about here for a long time, you started to hear this, well, yeah, he was the number 1 overall pick, but he would have been the 6th or 7th quarterback drafted last year. And yeah, he's fun to watch, but he does dumb things with the ball, just like Will Levis did the dumb things. So there is still that sort of sense that I don't know if this guy's that good, at least I think from a national perspective. And I think that's going to be really entertaining to sort of watch how the discussion ebbs and flows with him this year.
I think that's interesting what you just said, David, and it made me think about something. You and I both have covered Vanderbilt football at various points in our career, and we've seen guys being recruited by various programs that commit to Vanderbilt, and all of a sudden they were a 4-star and they become a 3-star, that kind of thing. With the round Cam since the draft, might that have anything to do with the market and the franchise that he is currently with?
I think that there's absolutely some of that. It's amazing to me that this team is still considered so uninteresting and maybe sort of very much second tier in the eyes of many NFL observers, and maybe that's never going to change. It's probably a bit of a product of the division. Indianapolis without Peyton Manning is not a very sexy franchise. Jacksonville Jaguars are never a sexy franchise. Even this team in its best days, people just didn't get on board with the idea that this is an NFL city, and we're 25, 26 years or more into this thing now. I guess people are always going to be in love with the New York teams and with the Bears and with the Patriots and whatnot, and everybody else is sort of riding in their wake right now in terms of trying to create headlines and generate some national interest and what have you.
David,
Wade,
I
you
wanted
back?
to ask, hopefully you guys can hear me. Had to make a big grand entrance for David here. But sorry if this has been discussed already, but it seems like in the early days of camp, every single throw, every single headline about Cam Ward was kind of over the top excitement. It seems like in the last week or so, there's been a few more, negative reactions. David, I'm curious your personal take, because I'm kind of the opinion you put little to no stock in a lot of this stuff. So I'm curious, is there anything to glean from either the positive side of things we've seen thus far or the negative in your mind?
The important thing in terms of when I watch Cam Ward or how I'm going to pay attention to things is you want to see more how he reacts to things. If he makes a bad throw, does he sort of kick the dirt? Does he throw his arms up? Does he sort of call out his receiver, or does he put his head down, go back to the huddle, talk to the coach, move on to the next play? It's been much more of the latter to this point. I think there was one day last week. It just so happened to be his day meeting with the media, and the offense didn't have a great day. And he was a little terse, I think, in a way that he hadn't been in other press conference sessions to this point. And I don't necessarily mean that as a bad thing. I mean, you want the guy to be mad about a bad practice. It's just a question of, how long did that linger afterwards? What did he do about it once he got in the building? Which, of course, we're not going to see. We're not going to know. And again, all indications are this guy has the right attitude about dealing with those sorts of things and handling the job in that way. The important thing is he's going to have to make plays on the field somewhere. Like the best thing that can happen to him is somewhere in the first month of the season, Titans are down by 4. They get the ball at their own 15 with 1:45 to play, and he takes them right down the field for a touchdown. Like that. You can show up at 5:30 every day. You can recite the playbook from start to finish, but until you make plays and you deliver in those clutch situations, particularly at that position, there's always going to be that question mark about you. He's just going to have to do it at some point, and certainly he's going to get the opportunity beginning right away in week 1 as long as he gets there healthy.
Kind of in that same vein, David, as much as you can, looking at last year's psychology and body language, I guess. I'm really also curious, how have you noticed, or what have you noticed about teammates kind of responding? Good throw or bad throw, or good play or bad play with Cam thus far?
Yeah, Mo and I were talking about it, right? You don't want to have the number 1 overall pick until you get the number 1 overall pick, and then you're excited about it, and it gives you a new burst of energy. I think you see guys, it's always fun to watch the wide receivers and who is sidling up to the new quarterback, and who's trying to be his friend and whatnot. And I think I think Calvin Ridley is doing a much better job of that this year. It was sort of when he got here last year, DeAndre Hopkins was already Will Levis's big brother. And that was, everybody else was sort of on the outside looking in right there. So I think Ridley has done a better job that way. It's, somebody's going to emerge as his favorite target. That happens. Maybe it's Ridley, maybe it's one of the rookies. Gunnar Helm, the tight end, I think is a strong possibility that way. Tyler Lockett could be the guy. Somebody's gonna be that guy. But I think everybody is excited about the possibility of A, being that guy, and B, what a fresh take on that position is going to do for this franchise right now that's been sort of stuck in the mud for a little bit. Let's be honest about that.
David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. DB, having said all that about Cam, what are we looking for? What do you want to see? It sounds as if his exposure is going to be a little limited tomorrow night, but what are you looking to see tomorrow night out of him and out of this team?
Yeah, I think the big question with Cam Ward is, how quickly does the ball come out of his hand? That's one of the knocks against him, is that he's prone to hold the ball too long in the pocket, and that's certainly not a good idea ever in the NFL. So you want to see him. You want to see him if it's a 3-step drop, get back, hit that back foot, get the ball out to one of those short throws. If it's a deeper drop, you want to see him look 1, 2 maybe and get the ball out. I'm sure we're not going to see a lot of really highly involved passing plays and whatnot. They should be the most simple stuff that's at the front of the playbook, whatever. So there shouldn't be a lot for him to think about. If he is standing in the pocket, sort of trying to sort all that out and not sure who's open, not sure where to look, not sure where to go with the ball, then that's going to be a problem. You'd like to see him obviously convert a couple of third downs somewhere along the way, and that's part of what I was talking about earlier, where you've got to make plays. Third down is where quarterbacks make their money in this league, and certainly you just want to see him. You just want to see him not get hit at any point. That's kind of become the big thing with these joint workouts in the league. Is teams feel like their starters get all the work they need, but in controlled situations, guys aren't likely to get hurt, so you don't see them in the preseason games as much. But Brian Callahan has said that the starters will play some degree in all 3 games, which I think is good. And I think you need to get Cam Ward as many game snaps as you dare during the preseason, just because there is that different sense of moving from play to play without taking the moment and discussing it with your position coach or the coordinator or whatnot. And you're under the pressure of the play clock and do those sorts of things. I'd like to see him do as much of that as they think they can get away with this year.
Besides Cam, what are you looking for?
I want to see the starting offensive line. Obviously, that was a big problem last year, and I want to see how they look as a unit and as individuals. There's been a lot of buzz about J.C. Latham, slimmed down, looking better, more confident. Obviously, playing the position he played at Alabama. Nothing Cam Ward can or will do is going to happen without that offensive line. So I think that's a huge part of things. I want to see the pass defense. I mean, it's going to be man to man. L'Jarius Sneed remains a huge question mark for this team. What are you going to get out of him, if anything, this year again, after getting almost nothing out of him last year? So the guys who you do have at cornerback, can they run and cover receivers man to man? Because that is what that is what Denard Wilson wants to do with this bunch. So I want to. That's a huge thing to me too. I think those are the 2 biggest things. And then assuming everybody plays, and I'm not sure that everybody will play much, but try to get a sense of what the actual receiver rotation is and who's in what package and what that might mean for the regular season.
David, real quick about the offense, I want to ask you one more. Reading from Pro Football Focus, seems the Titans ran about 46% of the time, throwing about 54 last year. I'm excited to watch the run game in particular this year. It felt like last season we kind of had an idea of what might be there in terms of production, but I was really impressed with Pollard and Spears, and I'm curious, does Callahan or have we learned anything about maybe a ratio? Obviously, your 50-50 is what you're probably going to get in terms of an answer, but I'm curious what you may take away from that as we go forward.
Yeah, and I mean, 46-54 is a really interesting ratio when you consider this is a team that lost more than 3 times as many games as it won, right? I mean,
trailing in a lot of games is how I interpret that.
Trailing, you would expect that would be much closer to 40-60%, and particularly with Brian Callahan coming from Cincinnati, where I mean, obviously they had the weapons to do it, but they, it seems like they throw the ball all over the field all the time. So, Tony Pollard, I think, was a really pleasant surprise last year in terms of the consistency with which he played and whatnot. That there's no doubt they want Tyjae Spears to get more carries this year, maybe lessen Pollard's load a little bit. In fact, I've been cautioning people, from a fantasy football perspective, don't be too excited about what you saw from Tony Pollard last year, because ideally they think he can be better with fewer touches, and Spears, and so I think obviously if they can run the ball as effectively as they did last year and stay in games more, then to your question, that ratio could get much closer to 50-50, if not even skew a little bit to the other side if things go really well.
Part beat writer, part fantasy football consultant David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. DB, before we let you get out, where does Quandre Diggs figure into the equation for the Tennessee Titans? Guy who was on this roster last year, left before the season ended, is back. Obviously, he and Ward have some family ties, but just on the field, how much of a factor do you expect him to be at what looks like a fairly full safety room?
Yeah, it's interesting. This I talked about it on our podcast this week, First and 10. That's TENN if anybody's looking for it. But Quandre Diggs is we'll drop a little plug in there. I appreciate you letting me do that. But the question came up, where what's the benefit of adding Quandre Diggs for the Titans? Is it more about what he would do for the defense? Is it more about having a confidant, a cousin, family member, whatever, for Cam Ward? And my sense is that it's actually more about Diggs. He's one of these guys that training camp started, he wasn't anywhere, and that happens to guys. We saw it here however many years ago. What was it, 2016, 2017, when Jonathan Cyprien gets hurt on the first day of training camp, and the Titans are able to bring in Kenny Vaccaro, who was a first round pick, had played out his rookie contract with the Saints, and then managed to go unsigned the whole offseason. And then Vaccaro steps in and he ends up being the starting safety here for 4 or 5 years, whatever it was. So Diggs was going to get signed by somebody at some point, but my guess is that in conversations with his agent, it was like, why don't you call the Titans? Number one, this is a guy who had very, very little injury history, and probably feels like he owes this team a little something after getting hurt last year and missing more games than he had in a long time. And two, he's an 11-year vet. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He's made in excess of $50 million in his career at this point. He doesn't have a lot to prove. I'm sure in his mind, it's like, I'd like to play with Cam. He's my cousin. We're close. That would be fun. And so from the Titans, it's a low risk move, right? At this point, He's coming in. You're not paying him the money that you were paying him last year. You're not counting on him to be a starter the way he was last year. If he comes in and he is the player you thought he was last year, then great. You've got yourself a steal and whatnot. But I think this was really more about Quandre Diggs saying, I've got to find a place to play at some point. Let's talk to the Titans first. If they're interested, let's go there. If not, then we'll wait for the phone to ring. And the Titans took their shot with him. It's one of those moves that I think could really, really pay off for them in a way that you don't necessarily expect by that kind of addition at this point in training camp.
David, the biggest question that I have Cam Ward and Tammy BOCLAIR met yet?
They have not, but that's obviously going to happen at some point. I don't know if you saw that West Columbia, Texas, has in fact renamed a street in town Cam Ward Way. Tammy has talked to the mayor there about how that all went, and it. Did she ask where her street was?
Come on now.
It actually, if they're going to name anybody, if they're going to name a street after anybody from her family, it would be her mother. You'd have Bernice Bros Way somewhere in there. The woman was. Lived in that town for 60 some years, and just was a true institution. So no, she has not met Cam Ward yet, but is very excited about doing so, and has regular conversations with folks back home about all things Cam Ward and what and just how excited folks there are about him and having him in the NFL at this point.
It's awesome. David BOCLAIR of the Nashville Banner joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. DB, we appreciate it, man, and we will catch up soon.
Always fun. Thanks, boys. Have a great weekend, everybody.
See you, David.
You too. Let's take a break here as we continue the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports today. When we come back, we'll talk a little baseball. Stick around.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Miller. Main Street Media is partnering with Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway to send a family of 4 to the race August 31st. To register, please visit any Main Street Media website and look for the Register Here banner. You'll also receive some fantastic Borchetta Bourbon Music City merchandise. We look forward to seeing you at the race.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
August 8th, 2014, the Braves got home runs from Justin and BJ Upton, Freddie Freeman, and Tommy LaStella, then held on for a 7-6 win over visiting Washington. In victimizing Nat starter Steven Strasburg, it marked the 5th time that the Upton brothers had homered as teammates in the same game, setting an MLB sibling standard that they had previously shared with Jason and Jeremy Giambi and Vladimir and Wilton Guerrero. That was this day in Braves history. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind. Upton here. No brothers homered for the Braves last night, but Drake Baldwin and Marcell Ozuna put the Braves up 2-0 in the bottom of the first. Carlos Carrasco turned right around and gave up 5 runs in the top of the second. And at that point, I decided it was time to watch Indianapolis and Baltimore. Checked back in, and it was 6-5. Then it was 6-6, and then it was 7-6. And final score: Atlanta 8, Miami 6. Drake Baldwin with a pair of home runs, 5 RBIs in that game. As David and I were talking yesterday about his NL Rookie of the Year candidacy, and I would think that this certainly doesn't hurt that.
Yeah, good performance. And like I said a couple shows ago, it feels like barring injury or someone else, looking at Isaac Collins from the Brewers and, maybe Augustine from the Marlins. That was an interesting head-to-head last night or last little bit here. But unless an injury, it feels like it's going to be his to lose at this point. And like you said, kind of salvage a little bit of positivity out of this season.
And it's funny, Wade, I did not know this, and I guess it's just me being old and not keeping up with some of this stuff, but apparently by Baldwin, and David explained this pretty well yesterday, by Baldwin being on the opening day roster and being a consensus top 100 prospect on a couple of major lists, MLB.com's and Baseball America's, I think, were the two that he said. If he were to win NL Rookie of the Year, the Braves would get an extra draft pick out of it. So, little incentive for, homegrown guys and that kind of thing, I guess. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. And like you said, something for the Braves to kind of hang their head on coming down the stretch here, as there's not a whole lot else to keep you excited about this team right now. Improving to 48-66 with that win. Miami falling 2 games under 500 with the loss at 56-58. They will meet again at 6:00 tonight. Edward Cabrera getting the ball for the Fish, 5-5 with a 3.24 earned run average. Bryce Elder, 4-8 with a 6.03 going for the Braves. If you don't pay attention to what's going on at Truist Park tonight, though, you may want to tomorrow, because Jen Powell, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce that, who worked earlier this week at First Horizon Park as part of the umpiring crew, will be on the crew for the Braves Marlins for both games in tomorrow's doubleheader and on Sunday's game as well. This will make her the first woman umpire to work a regular season Major League Baseball game in the history of the game. So I'm sure a lot of eyes will be on that for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, breaking barriers at the MLB level. Saw a lot of chatter about this on social, both from folks, like you said, that were on hand at First Horizon earlier this week to kind of see that in person, and then everybody else just kind of celebrating. Should be a cool moment, should be a fun moment, and hopefully it gets all the calls exactly the way they're supposed to be.
That would be an improvement. I mean, I'll be interested to see, and David and I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. I don't know, if folks will maybe come at her differently should she kick one than they would normally, or a little harder, a little easier. How does that work? How do you meter that? Should it be any different? I don't think it should, but interesting to keep an eye on that, I think. Again, Braves and Marlins play tonight. They play 2 tomorrow, and they play on Sunday to close out a 5-game series. That doubleheader forced by a rainout earlier this year.
And it's worth pointing out, it's good that we get to break this barrier because, we're trending toward robots calling the game anyway in a couple of years. So might as well break all the barriers we can while the humans still have a little say-so in the matter.
There you go. Houston and the Yankees will play tonight up at Yankee Stadium. It's a 6:05 start. The Astros coming in at 64-51 and cooling off a little bit. The Yankees 61-54. It's Hunter Brown going for the Astros, 9-5 with a 2.47 earned run average. Rookie Cameron Schlittler. Be careful with that one. 1-2 with a 4.58 earned run average, getting the ball for the Yankees. And again, Houston has had its struggles here of late, and they've got somebody nipping at their heels because Seattle walked off the White Sox last night, 4-3 in Atlanta. The Mariners now a game and a half back. They open a series at Tampa Bay tonight. Meanwhile, Texas, I think, is 4.5 back there at Philadelphia this weekend.
Yeah, this is a big series for both of these teams, and two, at the moment, underachieving teams. The only issue is, deep down, I think the real rational Astros fans would say they've overachieved to this point in the season, especially considering the injuries and kind of the players they've had to have on the field as of late. On the other side, you're always underachieving unless you're blowing everybody out if you're the Yankees. So big series in the Bronx. Should be fun. Have the Apple TV queued up tonight, and hopefully Hunter Brown can do some dazzling.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked during the rundown. The Sounds dropped a 7-2 decision to the Jumbo Shrimp of Jacksonville last night over at First Horizon. They have lost each of the first 3 games of this series, and they have now lost 4 straight, dating back to the series finale up at Scranton Wilkes-Barre over the weekend. So Sounds trying to get right. Again, they've lost 4 straight. They've lost the first 3 in this series, and they've lost 6 in a row to Jacksonville. So it's not just the big league club in the Marlins organization that's having a lot of success, but the Jumbo Shrimp are on a little bit of a roll right now as well. Nashville Sounds fans will be a little excited by the return on a rehab assignment of left-handed pitcher Robert Gasser, who spent, I think, parts of the previous 2 seasons here in Nashville. Again, he's here on a rehab assignment coming up from the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers of High A Midwest League. So get to see a former and future prospect perhaps this weekend as Gasser comes back to town.
Yeah, get out and support the boys. They need it. They've not done particularly well at home in the second half. 7-8 home record, not the greatest. We're used to seeing that number be a little better. So get out, cheer them on, and hopefully grab some dubs.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a break here as we close out hour number 1 of the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will talk a little MTSU football. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee. I just went blank. TOA, the Tennessee TOA of Columbia is bringing you the second hour of the weekend warm-up. And again, I just went blank. I'm sorry. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely, and we'll make it up to our advertisers later. But at any rate, we were over at MTSU Football Media Day earlier this week. We visited with Derek Mason. We had him on Coach's Corner yesterday. We've also got some video interviews with offensive coordinator Bodie Reeder, defensive coordinator Brian Stewart, and quarterback Nick Vadiato. And we're going to let you hear what they had to say when we visited with them. Let's start with Coach Reeder. Mark. Patton with Main Street Sports today, joining us here at MTSU Football Media Day this morning. Bodie Reeder, offensive coordinator, second year, right?
Second year.
Okay, so pretty much everybody's second year. Thanks for joining me, first of all. From year 1 to year 2, what's the biggest thing that you've figured out?
Well, you have a full year of information that we didn't have before. So a full year of knowing our players, knowing the conference, knowing how to work with each coach, right? Some guys are new, first time being around each other. There's some expectation and anticipation of what's to come, right? And I think that's always helpful going into the second year. And we were able to keep some continuity with the staff and excited about the guys that we have on our offensive staff. And then it's easier to speak the same language and go further faster. And then it's now ingraining and indoctrinating these new players.
You know, and that comfort level, I would imagine, makes a lot of things a lot easier.
Yeah, I think, the first year you go into it, you're not only installing to the players, you're installing to the coaches, the schemes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now you go into year 2, there's less installing to the coaches because they've mastered, they know the schemes. Now we can focus more on the players, and we're excited about their growth.
When you talk about expectations, coming off a 3-9 finish last year, y'all's first year on campus, everybody's hungry. Everybody out there is hungry for this thing to be successful, and I'm sure you all are as well. How does that transition lead to being a little bit more successful out here?
Well, we have high expectations for ourselves. There's a standard that we want to uphold, and we want to live to that standard. But what we can't get lost in is what the people outside this building think, right? Because we're going to win and lose with the people that are in our locker room, in our coaches' meetings, and our standard and our expectations what matters, and we have high expectations. So I think it's important right now that we focus on the 5 feet in front of our face. What's the thing that we need to do right now to be successful? And that's for these guys to go get treatment after practice. It's to go have a great lunch, get refueled and rehydrated, and then go have great meetings. And then each domino kind of takes care of itself.
It's interesting, everything you just said. Take care of your body, get yourself fed and hydrated, and get ready for the next day. And you can do all that a lot easier in this new building, can't you?
Yeah, we're very excited about the new building. We're very thankful for the time and sacrifice, both money and effort and creativity in what they did in this building. Now we have to defend it, and we're excited about that challenge.
Offensive coordinator. It's got to be a comfort to look out there and see number 11.
Yeah, it is. He's a good football player. I won't have comfort until we got a number 2. And it's important to me that we develop that backup quarterback because he will win games for us, and we'll need him. So I feel good about Nick. I don't feel good about our position yet.
And in this game, in this conference, it's become pretty apparent that you got to have a number two, don't you?
Oh, there's great defenses there, and hard hitting and physical,
and Nick doesn't necessarily play always looking forward to the next play. I mean, he's going to make that play.
Yeah, he's a tough joker, and he's going to sacrifice his body for the football team. That's why it's so imperative to have backup quarterback.
At the same time, though, a guy who's accomplished what he's accomplished in this program gives you really something to look forward to going into this season.
Well, Nick's made a lot of growth this offseason in his leadership. Nick's not naturally a real vocal person, and he's gotten more vocal over the offseason. He's holding his teammates accountable, and he has some energy and bringing them along. So I think he has a lot of room to grow, and he's done well.
Keeping him or whoever the number two is healthy comes back to that offensive line, and I know you guys are looking to make some strides from last year.
Yeah, we're the offensive line is a unique position. We brought in some new players, right? Coach Simmons is back, but we have to get that room living and breathing as one unit, because time has told me over my career the 5 guys that we run out there against Austin Peay will not be the 5 guys that we play with throughout the course of the year. That's just the nature of the position. So we can feel good about the 5 that we start, but we got to feel good about 6, 7, 8 because they're going to play, and that's why it's important to me that it's pretty symbiotic in there, and those guys can be interchangeable.
So depth pretty much across that offense is a huge objective and something that you're really paying a lot of attention.
Really excited about the depth of the wide receiver room right now. I think those guys can run at people in waves and stretch people down the field. But yes, depth and competition inside the rim is going to make everyone better.
Bodie Reeder, second-year offensive coordinator here at Middle Tennessee State, joining us on Main Street Sports today. Coach, I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
It was kind of interesting to me in talking with Coach Reeder that the biggest thing that they were kind of looking at was trying to create some depth and build some depth, particularly at the quarterback position, coming up with a number 2 behind Nick Vattiato, because he has been such a vital piece of that offense for such a long period of time, even predating this coaching staff. But they want to make sure that they've got a viable number 2 behind Nick, trying to just kind of close the gap between 1 and 2 so that you don't have the drop off, which makes a lot of sense. Let's go now to our conversation with defensive coordinator Brian Stewart. Tennessee State defensive coordinator Brian Stewart joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Coach, thanks for taking some time with us on this Tuesday morning. Absolutely. Hey, from year 1 to year 2, what's the biggest pickup, I guess? What's the biggest change for you and, as a coach and as this unit?
I think it's a couple of things. I think in football, especially this atmosphere with the NIL and the transfer portal, I think the 2 things that you really got to work on is talent, right? Talent, and then culture. So I think both those things have changed. I think our acquisition of the talent as well as our development of the talent has gotten better, as well as the retention of the talent. And then you look at as far as our culture, I think we're getting guys that really bought in. We kept guys that bought in, and we run guys that have bought in. And those are the 2 biggest differences.
Yeah, you talk about retention, and sometimes that kind of gets lost even in this day and time. But with so many people moving around, the more people you can keep around, the better your continuity is.
Absolutely, bro. You're absolutely right. Just keeping pieces on the defense, like our whole entire D-line returned, right? So that helps. Our starting Mo Parker, Hughes returned. We got our safeties, 2 of the safeties that started last year's first 2 games returned, and Brendan Harris and John House. So with that being the case, your meat and potatoes of your defense got a chance to have some continuity going into another season, and now being able to push the culture forward as well as what we want to do defensively.
Defensive coordinator in a program where your head coach is a defensive guy. How tough is that?
You would imagine it'd be real tough, but my background has always been around defensive coaches. So my first time in the NFL, I was with Don Capers, I was a DB coach. Don Capers was a head coach. The defensive coordinator was Vic Fangio. I go to San Diego Chargers. Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach. Then Wade Phillips was the defensive coordinator. I was his DB coach. I go to the Dallas Cowboys. I was the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys with Wade Phillips as the head coach. So that's not unfamiliar to me. One of the things I like about that is I have a person that respects what I do and knows that I respect what he does, and I can talk to him about some serious stuff. What I like, why I like it, and then they can dissect it and then give me suggestions or say how I like it too. So it's a good situation. Great situation.
You know, first year with Coach Mason, with this coaching staff, figured some things out, but things on the field didn't necessarily go the way you would have liked for them to. How does that change this time around?
Yeah, I think when we came in recruiting, we were a little behind the gun. And so you have to keep some guys maybe you normally wouldn't have kept. And then you're chasing recruiting. When I say you're chasing, it's just like those aren't the guys you actually recruited. We kind of had to piggyback on the guys that were already recruited. And not that they weren't good football players, but they didn't necessarily fit our scheme and what we were doing on both sides of the ball. So now we're in a situation where we recruited. So the guys that we recruited this last class, the 19 freshmen and 20 freshmen that are local, as well as the transfer portal guys that we have, we recruit those guys. They fit our system. They know how we want to play. They play in very similar systems and come from very similar systems. So it's exciting because now the machine can run better.
First year in here, first year in the conference, kind of getting your feet on the ground, figuring some things out. More comfortable this time, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I think when you come into a job, no matter where you are, you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And then so coming in, you're like, hey, from what we look at, we look pretty good, spring, but then you don't know. Mm-hmm. And then once you start playing against teams, we started off with Tennessee, a good Tennessee Tech team, but nobody knew it was going to be that good until the season, and then you said we're doing pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, we're playing against Ole Miss, who was a pretty good team. And then we had Memphis and then Duke. So our first 4 games, man, we took some body blows. In those body blows, we lost our starting linebacker and our starting safety. So then now, guys, you're counting on and these happen all the time, but guys you're counting on weren't there, and now the guys get battlefield promotions, sometimes aren't prepared. And then so now you're looking at a league, and now by the time we get to Western Kentucky, those guys are flying by Jacksonville State. So no excuses. We didn't play the way I'd like to play, obviously. And that's one of the things when it came to December 1st, this December 1st, I sat down and I wrote a manifest that how we're going to get better. And I talked to our assistant coaches as well as our head coach and said, hey, here's how we're going to get better going off of what we did last year.
Talked to Coach Reeder, the offensive coordinator, and one of the things that he kind of stressed was depth. You mentioned injuries early, that kind of thing. Obviously, there's no getting away from them. Obviously, it's a next man up mentality. Starters are starters for a reason, but you don't want there to be that drop off when the next guy steps out there.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I think we solidified depth in positions, but you still, the starter still started for a reason. But I think where we are now is maybe we lost a step. Maybe we lost a little football IQ. But I think before we lost a lot. And right now, knock on wood, being healthy, if we have to play some of the younger guys, or if we have to play the seconds or the thirds, they know what to do and know how to do it. Yeah.
Self-awareness, Coach.
Yes.
It's a big thing, right?
Not everybody has it.
Brian Stewart, MTSU defensive coordinator, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Coach, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Very
Good
much.
talking to you.
Thanks.
All right. When you are out on assignment, you just never know what's going to happen.
Anything and everything.
There we go. There we go. We're going to wrap it up, though. Again, we were able to sit down with Nick Vattiato, starting quarterback for the Blue Raiders, and get his thoughts on some things, some off-season stuff, some on-field stuff, just picking his brain a little bit here. So, Nick Vattiato, next up. QB1, Nick Vattiato from Middle Tennessee State, joining us here on Main Street Sports today at MTSU Football Media Days. Nick, thanks for taking some time with us, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
So how was MPA, the Manning Passing Academy?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. I mean, that family is amazing. They're phenomenal people. Getting to go down there in Louisiana for the weekend, learned a lot and met a lot of great people that, I had a great time.
Did you get some crawfish?
Yeah, no, I did not. I know. I've never had crawfish. I'm sorry.
Where are you from?
Florida. Big on shellfish. Conch. You ever had conch?
I've not had conch.
Conch's where it's at.
That's where it's at.
Conch salad and conch fritters.
I'll keep that in mind.
If you're ever down in South Florida.
South Florida.
If you're ever down in South Florida.
Okay. With the seasons that you've had, and I was talking to somebody about this recently, obviously you had some opportunities to be elsewhere, just given the landscape of college football at this point, just the reality of it. Why is Nick Vattiato still in Murfreesboro, Tennessee?
Yeah, I think, Middle Tennessee has given me a lot of opportunities that I'm forever grateful for. I think coming here as a true freshman with Coach Dodd, he gave me the opportunity to come here to be a quarterback, to play to play early, which is what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to go somewhere where I could play. And then I think after 2023, Coach Mason comes in and the coaching change happens, and Coach Mason and I had a lot of good conversations, and I trusted him and to where he wanted to take this program and what his vision was. And, I didn't feel strong enough. Like, there was no need for me to go elsewhere for more money or for whatever it was. Like, I felt that what I wanted to do at the end of the day was win where I'm at a school that has given me a lot of opportunities. And there's nothing more I want than to be able to win at MT. And I think that, I have the opportunity to do that because I'm here and we have a great coaching staff and a great locker room. And I love the people here, and, we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen. It's my last year, so we're going to make it happen.
It's unfortunate, but you realize how counter that attitude is?
I mean, I get everyone has their own reasons for transferring. I think at the end of the day, the people here, whether it's the athletic department, the coaching staff, whoever it is, they've given me so much that I want to be able to give back and for this team to win. And that's all that matters to me at the end of the day. It might be the boring answer, but that's just what it is.
Well, like you said, everybody's situation is unique, and that's the reality of it. So, with that said, how do you all go about doing that this time around?
Yeah, I think Coach Mason's first year didn't go how anyone wanted. But at the end of the day, there's been a lot of growth. We have a lot of new guys on this team who want to win, who want to be here, and I think they bring the right attitude every day in practice, and they bring the right attitude to the team. And Coach Mason has done a great job, I think, just setting the standard and then letting the players kind of police ourselves to make sure that standard's met. We're 5 days through camp right now. I think guys have done a good job improving each day, and I think that's all you want to see out of these guys. I think there's been a lot of improvement in the O-line room. There's more depth in the receiver room. I think defense has added a lot of talent on their side of the ball, which I've been really happy about because we get to compete against them every day. So I think just like that, we trust and love each other in this locker room, and that's a big thing. And when we go on that field, we're making each other better. And so I'm really confident about this team that we have.
Individually speaking, how does Nick Vattiato take his game to another level from 2024?
I think it's you just try to fine-tune small things. There's not major differences, drastic differences that you're going to make. It's fine-tuning the small things. It's understanding, situational football. It's understanding, where your check down is, how to handle pressures and protections. And I think what's helped me a lot is second year in this offensive system with Coach Reeder, having a better command of the offense. I think my role as a leader has continued to grow and get better and bigger. And I have a lot of talented guys around me like, I do not have to be Superman by any means. Like, I can be a point guard on a basketball team. You know, like, my job is to get the ball to our best players, whether it's making sure we're handing off the ball, we have the right run call in the run game, or it's just spitting it out to our receivers in the pass game, make sure they have the ball in their hands as quick as possible. Like, that's my job. And then I get to watch those guys work because those guys are super talented. And we have a defense that's going to get us the ball back. We got a lot of playmakers that's going to make a lot of plays.
Yeah, Coach Reeder, when I was talking to him, said that one of the keys right now is figuring out who your backup is. And, you know, you missed some time last year. Most quarterbacks in this day and time do. How do you go about making yourself available as much as you can?
Yeah, I think it's just, you got to take care of your body no matter what. I think, you know, as quarterbacks going through camp, like, we're not getting hit going through camp, right? So that load is taken off of us. So we have to do a good job as quarterbacks going through camp. Like, you have to prepare your body throughout the course of the winter, spring, summer with Coach Blatnick. Like, you got to get in the weight room. You got to add your muscle. You got to add a little bit of weight, like good weight, to make yourself durable throughout the course of the season, because you're going to take some shots. Like, we have a phenomenal line, but we're playing football at the end of the day. Like, I'm going to get hit. I'm going to take some shots. But I think it's just about, like, you have a good process. You get a good routine. You trust Coach Blatnick's process in the weight room. Then you get in, you recover your body. You eat right, you eat good. We have a phenomenal training staff. So I think it's just doing the right things off the field to make sure your body is at top shape on the field.
You guys are about a week into the Student Athlete Performance Center.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's amazing. It's like everything anyone could have asked for. Like, this thing is amazing. It's hard to put in words like how great this building is, but it's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Are you able to make the new guys who haven't necessarily seen pre-SAPC really appreciate this?
You know, these incoming freshmen, they probably won't understand it, you know, but at the end of the day, like, I think it's important to understand, like, this is something that a lot of people donated to make happen. And I think we are all grateful for them. And I think just every day we walk in that building, you know, we're taking care of it the right way. You keep it clean. You keep your locker room clean. You make sure that you don't leave trash on the ground. You know, respect what people have done for you, and obviously this building that's been built for us. So I think it's, you know, at the end of the day, like, even if some of these young guys didn't experience like what was here before this beautiful building, you know, we can make sure that we're all doing our job to upkeep it and make sure it always looks as good as it does right now.
Middle Tennessee State starting quarterback Nick Battiato joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Nick, appreciate your time, man.
Thank you so much.
Good
Appreciate
luck.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
To the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. It's been a rough Friday, man, but it's getting ready to get better, because joining us now as we begin our Southeastern Conference football previews is the voice of the Bulldogs, 2024 National Sports Media Association Mississippi Sportscaster of the Year, Neil Price, gracing us here on Main Street Sports Today. Neil, good afternoon.
Hey, Maurice, good to see you.
You as well, man. Thanks for taking some time with us. How's it going in Starkville?
It's going good. It's plenty hot, and that tends to signal that football's coming. I was in California last week and was joking with people out there. It was 88 degrees one day with about 20% humidity, and they issued an extreme heat warning. And I laughed. I was standing there in long sleeves and long pants thinking, okay, this is different. And then got back to Starkville on Tuesday, and the minute that I got out of the car, I realized that the humidity was here. So football is too, and that's a good thing.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't step out in those same long pants and long sleeve shirts, I guess.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
oh, no.
Yeah. How are things looking in year two of the Jeff Lebby era down there?
Well, look is the key word. This team looks different than the team that Jeff Lebby had in year one, and you can really see it along the offensive and defensive lines. There was an effort made to go into the transfer portal and try and find some size, try and find some people on that defensive line that could be disruptive, could generate a pass rush. That was a real problem for this team a year ago. And then I think they have added some speed both at running back and at wide receiver that can help their offense get to where they want to go. They've added some pieces at quarterback that have given them perhaps the deepest quarterback room that maybe they've ever had at Mississippi State. So there's a lot to like on paper. How will it all look in about 3.5 weeks when they get on the field? That's the big question, and that's what we're all trying to figure out.
As you look at the media poll from SEC Media Days a few weeks back, you got to look a pretty good way down before you find Mississippi State. They were picked dead last in the 16-team league. How does Lebby, how do the Bulldogs go about proving some folks wrong?
Well, if you live in this part of the world, Maurice, it's kind of like a badge of honor. Even in years where State has had exceptional teams, they've always been picked at the bottom by the media in the SEC. And it's been pretty rare, if you go back and look over the last 20 years, that they finished as low as they've been projected. Now, last year's one of those years where the expectations were pretty low, and unfortunately, State couldn't rise above that. But I do think this year they've got an opportunity, if all those new people can gel together, to surprise some folks. And I'm not saying they're going to go out and win 8 or 10 games, but I think if they could double their win total from a year ago, if they somehow could find 6 wins on a really tough schedule, it would be an exceptional year in year 2 for Jeff Lebby.
Neil, I'm really curious. You start the year with Southern Miss, obviously, and it feels like are we overstating things? How critical, I guess, is my real question. How critical is it going to be for this particular team to maybe get off to a fast start and really kind of get some momentum? Because we know the SEC does seem like an uphill battle in that regard.
Well, I think anytime you play in this league, the first month of the season is critical, because that's an opportunity to try and make a little bit of hay. You're hopefully playing in games that you're going to be favored in. Now, one of those first 4 games for Mississippi State's against Arizona State, and that's a team that was in the college football playoff a year ago. a team that beat State in Tempe. So I think that one is a little bit of an outlier. But if you look at the other 3 games in there, one would think State would be favored to win in 3 of those 4 games. And I think even that Arizona State game being played in Starkville is probably going to be a toss-up by the time it comes around. So, yes, the first 4 games are absolutely critical. And then you've got your SEC opener in the 1st of September, and things begin to really tighten up because State has one of the 2 toughest schedules in the SEC this year. I think Vanderbilt could make a case, too, for having one of the top 2 toughest schedules in the league before the teams ever played. So the guys who were here a year ago, and there aren't a ton of them, they know exactly what to expect because they played all those SEC teams last year. And for some of these new guys, it's going to be an eye-opener, making a step up in a lot of cases from mid-major football to seeing what it's like to play at this level.
Neil, while we're talking schedule, man, you mentioned that Arizona State game, and I'd kind of already forgotten about that visit last year. I must admit, though, I'm a little disappointed in the schedule makers. It's a 6:30 kickoff. You got to play that thing at noon and welcome somebody from the West Coast, although it's Arizona State. You got to put them right in the heat of things there in Starkville, do you not?
You and I are on the same page on that, but you and I also have no control over the schedule. All that stuff is determined by all that stuff's determined by television these days. I remember when we went to Tempe last year. I usually get to the stadium about 6 hours before kickoff. I go over with the managers and the trainers, and I remember going through security at Sun Devil Stadium, and all the folks who were working security, the event staff folks, were like, "Boy, it's hot out here, isn't it?" Just like trying to plant that seed. Boy, it's hot out here, and it was 100 or 102, I think, that day. But again, it's a dry heat because you're in the desert. So if you're standing directly in the sun, yeah, you're going to get hot. But you know, it wasn't humid like it is here. And even at 6 o'clock, the humidity in the second week of September, third week of September, is going to be palpable. So I would be curious to see if that has any impact on the game at all. But it'll test conditioning for both sides. Certainly, State's practicing in it right now, and I'd be curious to see what happens when you bring a team in from out west where that humidity's not there. But is it an impact at all? Who knows? But I'm with you. Yeah, I was hoping that might wind up at 11 a.m. I was kind of thinking that would be the best thing for the home team in that case.
Yeah, 11 a.m. You get it. You get them on perhaps a little bit less sleep coming obviously out there. And I'm always going to think, you know, when Cal came to Neyland Stadium and just you could see the players just wilting on the sidelines almost. So we'll get back. We'll state our claim for future West Coast visits, I guess, with the schedule makers there. Neil, I'm looking through the schedule too, and man, you kind of summed it up best. That is a murderer's row, even by SEC standards. You could maybe make the argument or case that they're going to be an underdog in virtually every game. What are some position groups, or how does maybe Mississippi State find enough of an identity to maybe flip that so they do have a little juice in a couple of those games heading forward?
I think it starts with defense. And again, that defense a year ago, I hate to say it, but it statistically is the worst group defensively that State had put on the field since I arrived here in 2017. And there were some injuries involved there. They had some personnel that, quite frankly, they just had a hard time playing against the caliber of talent you see at this level. And I think that Coleman Hutzler and Jeff Lebby have addressed that. I really do. And it starts up front. You know, they've got a terrific safety named Isaac Smith, all-league player. I don't know that we've really seen how good he can be because everything he did last year, he did without the benefit of any kind of pass rush up front to give him a chance to make plays in the secondary. So they've gone out, they've brought in some guys who have put up some really gaudy numbers. Now, again, not necessarily playing at the P4 level, but playing in mid-major football. And if their games can translate to this level, it gives you some hope that that group is going to be a lot better. I think it starts there. The other piece, while it's not maybe as pressing as it was a year ago, is Blake Shapen, their quarterback, has to stay healthy. Blake's numbers in 4 games before he got hurt against Florida were outstanding. 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, completed close to 70% of his passes. But behind him, they didn't have any depth. So you put a true freshman out there who'd never played a game at this level and now isn't even a part of your team anymore. They have a very talented freshman, Camario Taylor, who is from just down the road here in Macon, Mississippi. A lot of people would love to see him play tomorrow. And just based on what little I've seen of him in the fall and what I saw of him in the spring, he will be a fantastic quarterback. He's got the physical tools, the mental, he's got all of it. But you've got Blake Shapen and you've got Luke Kromenhawk, who came over from Florida State, got to play a little bit in the ACC. So if you have an injury, you feel like I think you can weather that storm more this year than they could a year ago. But I think they've got to keep Blake Shapen healthy. They've got to get a pass rush on defense. If they can do those two things, they'll give themselves a chance to upset some folks this year, especially with a lot of the tougher games at home. I think the schedule is favorable in that way for them, but all those games are going to be really hard.
Neil Price, the voice of the Bulldogs, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And Neil, as I'm looking through the roster here, Taylor sure looks the part, 6'4", 230.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, he's a legacy guy. His uncle was a quarterback here, so he wanted to play here. And I'm telling you, the program he comes out of in Macon at Noxubee County, they have produced football. There's a guy in Nashville right now named Jeff Simmons who came out of that same program, and he's pretty good. So Camario's got pedigree, and he is just a freakish athlete. He needs to add a little bit of good weight probably to be able to withstand some of the pressure and some of the hits that you take playing in the SEC. But he's just a freshman. And as he continues to grow, as he continues to mature, he's going to turn into a real player. I believe that watching him. And it's just a very small sample size, but boy, it's hard not to be excited about it.
You know, scrolling up and down through this roster, Neil, and it's, I'm not sure how much different it is at Mississippi State than anywhere else, but there are a lot of guys that have colleges next to their names on the roster. Everybody's in the transfer portal. And when you've had a year like Mississippi State had last year, it was probably incumbent on them to do so as well. But yeah, how quickly can you get those guys acclimated to doing things the way you want to do them, and how quickly can they, have an impact for you?
Well, I think in State's case, a good many of those guys came in January. So they at least had the benefit of the spring. Now, not every one of them, and not every one of them that's probably going to be in that 2 deep when we get to week 1. But the bulk of them got here in January. They got to go through spring. They got to learn either the offense or the defense and get acclimated in that way. And then they've been here for off-season workouts, strength and conditioning, all that. So I think that part's helpful. The guys who are getting thrown into the fire who just got here in June and these last 3 or 4 days since camp has started are their first experience being on the field and being in that situation where they're asked to execute at a high level, and their study has come from video primarily or just looking through the playbook. Those are the ones that have got to pick it up quick. And, we'll see how it goes. I think that's the toughest thing about college sports in this day and age. And I don't care if it's football, if it's basketball, if it's baseball, how quickly can you get new people, because the rosters are constantly in flux? How quickly can you get those people acclimated? How quick can you build chemistry? Mike Leach used to say, this is not something you can put in a microwave. It takes time. This is more of a slow cooker approach than it is a microwave approach. So that's the $1 million question. It really is. How quick does it come together? And that's not just for State. That's for every team, regardless of how high you're projected or how low you're projected. Does it all pan out?
You and Wade talked a little bit about the schedule. Got Arizona State coming in week 2, but you open August 30th at Southern Miss. And I'm sure some of your fan base wonders why that's at Southern Miss. But, I mean, that's you could get off on the wrong foot real quick there.
Sure, and that'll be a big game for Southern Miss because you get to host one of your big in-state rivals, and they'll have a full house there. They have had a great history of succeeding in games like that, even when they've been on the road. They've had a great history of having success in those games. So, yeah, State doesn't have a breather going in. They've got to find a way to rally around one another going into a hostile place to play, and you're playing at 11 o'clock in the morning, right out of the chute to start the season. So, yeah, the start is super important. They need to get off to a good start before they can come back home and try to get their legs under before SEC play starts. But, yeah, people here aren't surprised necessarily that the game is at Southern Miss. State's had a history, too, if you go back and look, of going on the road and playing against programs, not only like Southern Miss, but they're going to Troy in a few years to play a game. I know you've been up in Murfreesboro, Mo, in the last little bit. Shortly after I graduated, State went to Murfreesboro and played Middle. So they've done this before. I imagine they'll continue to do it. It's just something that's always been a part of the way they've scheduled here.
You know, to Wade's point, it looks like they could very well be an underdog in each game they play in Southeastern Conference play, but opening at home against Tennessee on the 27th. But, you know, is there an SEC matchup, Neil, that you kind of point to and say, this one is where we can kind of plant our flag maybe? And if so, how far down is it?
I don't know that you'll find anybody in this league who will look at an SEC game and say, yeah, that's the one we think we can take advantage of.
Not publicly, at least.
Yeah, listen, there's so much parity, and I know where State was a year ago, but in the era that we're in, where people can go out and rebuild rosters over a course of months, you just never know. I think where State's got to try to take advantage. There are some really difficult home games in the SEC on their schedule. But I think if you're going to take advantage of one somewhere, it's going to have to be one of those in your stadium, because trying to win on the road in this league is one of the hardest things, I think, in sports.
Neil, I wanted to ask you, you've been around the program for a while, and, we certainly have seen, some very highs. I'm thinking college football playoff #1 ranking. And right now, I just gauge, if you will, for us, the temperature meter, maybe not necessarily give us the fans kind of vibe right now, and how many wins or how many losses would it take to kind of really get the fan base kind of to believe again? Are they really believing at the moment in this program?
Well, I think your loyal people are always going to have belief that their team's going to go out and put its best foot forward. It's those that, and listen, people who've been around state football for a long time know that there have been some real valleys in this thing, far more valleys than there have been peaks in the history of the program. Okay. So I think what people want to see primarily, they want to see improvement. And I think most are smart enough to understand what the schedule is. So improvement may not mean 6 or 7 wins. Improvement may mean 4 or 5. But in those other games, is State competitive? Are the Bulldogs giving effort? Are they aligned correctly? Are they executing? If you get beat by a better team, but you've done everything you can do to put yourself in position, I think a lot of people are okay with that, given where this program has been. I think a lot of people also understand that one of the things that State needs in football is stability. I've been here since 2017. Jeff Lebby is the 6th football coach I've worked with since I got here. It's tough to win when you don't have continuity. Now, some of that couldn't be helped. None of us could have expected that Mike Leach was going to unexpectedly pass away. None of us could have accounted for that. But turnover is tough, and we need Jeff Lebby to be successful here because this program needs a consistent leader. And hopefully this is the beginning of him starting to see what he hopes this can be. And then the schedule should change next year. We don't know what that's going to look like with regard to the conference schedule, but this 2-year cycle ends, and hopefully by year 3, that schedule looks different, and it's one where you feel like you're not necessarily going up against the murderers row week in and week out like they have the last 2 years.
Neil Price, the play-by-play announcer for Mississippi State football, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Neil, really appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon, and stay hydrated.
Well, we do the best we can, and same to you guys up there. I was glad to see you in Murfreesboro. Like I say, I'm a middle alum. I try to keep up best I can with those guys. I keep up with Chip quite a bit. He keeps me informed on what's going on up there, but I hope year 2 for Derek Mason is a good one too, and that those guys can get things turned around and headed back in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Now we're talking.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you, Neil.
All right,
we'll
see
catch
you guys.
up. Thank you. Let's take a break here on the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Let's come back for the final segment. We will kind of jump in the grab bag and get you ready for the weekend. Stick around.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it. But it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
Welcome back into the final segment of the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Nashville Soccer Club on the road again in MLS play this weekend, heading over to St. Louis. It's a little bit shorter trip than their last trip in league play when they had to go all the way out to the West Coast, take on San Diego. And looks like it's not a great St. Louis team that they're going to be encountering tomorrow night.
Yeah, the schedule set up kind of nicely in that sense for NSC, right? Kind of reached a little bit of a break. You played your friendly versus Aston Villa. And then as you kind of dip your toe back into MLS play, yeah, there could certainly be worse opponents, and there certainly could be worse road trips that you could kind of wade into those waters. So hopefully, I still kind of got to cover my eyes when I see a game like this because I'm just used to them not performing on the road versus teams they're supposed to beat. So hoping for good things, and hopefully they come back with all 3 points.
Yeah, you got to scroll pretty far down the Western Conference table to come up with St. Louis. This record, 4-6-14. Now, is that – I don't know if that's 4 wins, 6 draws, and 14 losses, or if that's 4 wins, 6 losses, and 14 draws. Wade, do you have any better feel for that?
Yeah, 14 L's for those guys. They only have 18 points They are second to last, kind of as you referenced there. And they kind of got a little bit of, I know St. Louis, the gateway to the West, I guess, if you will, but they're in Nashville's shoes from a couple years ago where they're stuck in a loaded Western Conference and they got to do a lot of travel. So Nashville sitting on 47 points, St. Louis sitting on 18. Everything kind of points to NSC getting 3 points coming out of there with the victory. But I'll believe it when I see it, and hopefully we're talking about them Monday picking up a nice win.
That would be nice because they are still right there in the mix at the top of the Eastern table. Philadelphia Union with 50 total points, FC Cincinnati with 49, and Nashville with 47, 3 up on the Columbus Crew. So 3 points this weekend would be a nice little get for them. And if they can keep the Golden Boot Sam Surridge headed in that direction, that will be a big help toward getting that outcome that you're looking for. So be interesting to keep an eye on that one tomorrow night. Again, 7:30 first touch. You can see it on Apple TV as the boys in gold go to the gateway to the West.
Hey, real quick, it'd be nice to get all 3 there. You'll maybe you live with the draw, but it'd be nice to get all 3. You got a tricky road trip up to New York, who will be definitely a step up, and in the Eastern Conference next week. So it'd be nice to go ahead and do some heavy lifting this weekend.
Yeah, and again, as we talk about that schedule, we went through that flurry of games there through June and July. They won't play after tomorrow night until next Saturday, I guess.
Next Sunday even. Yeah, the 17th. So a little bit of a break. The schedule will crank up and you will start squeezing, fingers crossed, squeeze in a couple U.S. Open matchups, but they still got one of those lurking in the middle of September. So the schedule will kind of narrow as we get closer toward the end of the regular season here, but enjoy the rest while you got it.
Absolutely. NASCAR Cup Series goes to Watkins Glen this weekend after William Byron picked up a win out at Iowa this past weekend. Watson Glen road course, SVG Invitational, right?
Sure would think so. And I would just love to really kind of get the honest opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but NASCAR drivers are so, you got to be so crazy and kind of so self-believing that you think you can go out and win. But I'd love to kind of know what they really think. SVG, I just pulled it up. He's a small underdog, but he is the favorite in that sense. He's only plus 120. Zilich listed behind him, and then Kyle Larson falls way off the pack at plus 1,100. So, Vegas is on to SVG as well. It'll be his race to lose, and certainly his race not to finish atop the podium there in the top 3.
Yeah. David and Calvin will have Heather Williams on Wednesday to wrap that one up, but I'll be interested to see what she thinks about this one because, again, you put that guy on a road course and it feels like Larry Bird walking into the 3-point contest, who's going to finish second. So we will keep an eye on that this weekend. Korn Ferry Tour stopped this weekend in Omaha. Former Brentwood Academy standout Blades Brown shot a 3 over 74 in his opening round yesterday, and trying to see where he is now. When we checked prior to the show, he had taken a couple of strokes off of that, but was still well under the projected cut line, unfortunately. So
finished 1 under for the day. So 2 over. Doesn't look like we'll be seeing any weekend action for Blades, but the fact he's not living and dying now with every. Yeah, it'd be great to obviously make the cut. Yeah, it'd be great to have a top 20 or even a win. But you're not living and dying kind of now that he's secured that full-on tour membership.
Yeah. So the baby steps for the youngster out of Brentwood Academy. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one. We'll let you know Monday if he made the cut and how that wound up. Let's see. We talked WNBA a little bit during the rundown. Got some marquee games this weekend as Seattle goes to Vegas tonight. The Sparks and the Valkyries will play tomorrow night. And then again, you've got the Lynx and the Liberty in a rematch of your 24 WNBA final. That's Sunday at 11:30. You can see it on ABC. I'll be interested again. Brianna Stewart has been out. I don't know if she's gotten back yet for the Liberty. Nafisa Collier has got an ankle, and she's out for the Lynx, I think. So both Minnesota and New York a little undergunned relative to where they would want to be for that Sunday matchup.
Yeah, and the Liberty, man, it just it's not quite season from hell just yet, but man, it feels like they've had to deal with a lot, kind of the defending champs curse in that regard. So, but then just when you think, okay, well, it's Minnesota, yet Fee has been injured a couple of times this season, and now for a little bit of an extended break, they kind of need to get back to full strength if they're going to really make a push. We got about a month until the regular season ends, so it's kind of going to be crunch time, especially for some of these teams flirting with moving up or down a tier, or maybe sneaking into the playoffs or out. So a lot to play for here in these next couple of weeks.
You know, this Seattle-Vegas game tonight would have been the Alicia Clark Bowl, except the Storm traded Alicia to Washington earlier this week. So
going back to DC, and man, just mentioned a team that has played, man, they've lost 3 in a row, but they were playing so well and kind of really punching above their weight for what a lot of people projected going into the season. So maybe a chance to bring in, maybe that was the thought process, bring in kind of a veteran leader, bring in a proven champ, and kind of see if you can recapture some of that magic, because after a great start, they're kind of fizzling at the moment.
Meanwhile, Alyssa Thomas with an 18-point, 11 rebound, 10 assist performance last night for the Mercury in a 95-80 win over the Fever, posted her 3rd consecutive triple-double, which had never been done before in WNBA play. So congrats to the former Maryland Terrapin. She will be going for her 4th straight triple-double Sunday when Atlanta comes to town. Intriguing matchup there.
Absolutely. And speaking of teams that had kind of lost their way, Phoenix was flying to start the year, really kind of flying up the rankings. Then they've kind of taken a bit of a lull, but just when you think they're dead and buried, 3 straight wins, 3 straight triple doubles, they're getting the best of their biggest acquisition this offseason. That'll be a fun showdown coming up in 2 nights.
Absolutely. The Mercury the Mercury and the Dream each 19-11, tied for 3rd in the league, a half game behind the Liberty. Obviously, the Lynx running off and leaving everybody 25-5 to this point. So these are, 2 of the top 4 teams in the league that will be facing off on Sunday out in the Valley of the Sun. Should be an interesting matchup there. We've talked a little bit about the Connecticut Sun and whatever's going to happen with them. We mentioned Mike Pagliuca having put together an offer to purchase that team and move it to Boston. Well, apparently he presented it to the league administration, but not to the board of governors, and so that's been stalled. Also, they're saying that, well, we need to make this offer or make the team available to those who had bid on expansion teams before we bring somebody else into the mix. So this guy's wanting to spend $325 million on this team, and the league is kind of stiff-arming him a little bit. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, kind of never easy, right? Or never easy as you would think. And then we see the politicians kind of getting involved. Governor Lamont up there is now all of a sudden really making a push, trying to plead his case with the NBA and with the WNBA, trying to save the franchise and keep it in Connecticut. It feels like we see this a lot when a team is either on the way out or rumored to be on the way out. Everybody kind of steps up and tries to save them. Who knows? A little bit of a soap opera kind of developing here.
Definitely, which kind of tells you that, maybe the WNBA is finding its footing to some degree, and maybe the players are right. Because, again, when you see these kind of numbers being thrown around to purchase a team, there's got to be some money to pay the folks that are playing the game. So stay tuned. That's going to do it for the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Be sure and join us at 2 o'clock as Wade and I get you caught up on everything that has taken place from now till then. We'll see y'all 2 o'clock tomorrow, 2 o'clock Monday. Have a great weekend.